High Commander Rolus stood before the massive display screen in his war room. His gray skin reflected the blue light of the holographic images. Around him, his advisors watched in silence as pictures of human beings moved across the screen. "Tell me again," Rolus said, his deep voice filling the room. "Tell me why we should not simply take what we want from them." The intelligence officer stepped forward. His name was Counselor Ven, and he had spent 3 years studying humanity. "High Commander, the humans have refused every military alliance offered to them. They have declined to join the Galactic Defense Pact. They have turned away from the coalition of warriors. Every time someone speaks of war, their diplomats become uncomfortable." Rolus made a sound that passed for laughter among his kind. Uncomfortable? They rule 12 star systems, and they become uncomfortable at the mention of war. "Yes, High Commander. Our spies report that humans speak often of something they call the cost of war. They seem deeply troubled by violence." Warlord Then, who stood near the window, turned to face them. He was larger than Rolus, with scars covering his arms from countless battles. "They are cowards," he said simply. "Nothing more. They expanded into space and found that the universe is not kind. Now they hide behind their diplomats and their soft words." Rolus nodded slowly. The Velthari Dominion had conquered 200 worlds. They had crushed species far more threatening than these pale, soft creatures called humans. If humanity feared war, then humanity would fall. "Prepare the fleet," Rolus commanded. "But first, let us meet these humans face to face. I want to see their fear with my own eyes." 3 weeks later, the human diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge docked at Velthari Station 9. Captain Deho walked at the front of his small delegation. He was a man of 45 years, with gray appearing at his temples and calm eyes that seemed to notice everything. Behind him walked Dr. Yuna, the ship's psychologist and cultural expert. She was younger, perhaps 30, with a gentle face that often made aliens underestimate her intelligence. Lieutenant Juan followed next, a tactical officer whose military record was impressive, but who rarely spoke of it. Finally came Engineer Sora, barely 23 years old, whose hands never stopped moving as she observed the alien. Technology around them, the Velthari guards, led them through long corridors lined with weapons and trophies from conquered worlds. Dr. Yuna noticed that the humans were meant to see these displays. "They were meant to feel afraid, Captain." Teho's expression did not change. They entered a great hall, where High Commander Rolus waited on a raised platform. Around him stood dozens of Velthari warriors, each one massive and armed. Warlord Then stood at the commander's right side, his eyes fixed on Lieutenant Juan with obvious contempt. "Welcome, humans," Rolus said. His translating device made his words clear but could not hide the mockery in his tone. "We are honored that you found the courage to visit us." Captain Teho bowed his head slightly. "The honor is ours, High Commander. Earth hopes that this meeting will bring understanding between our peoples." "Understanding?" Rolls leaned forward. "We understand you perfectly. You are builders and traders. You make things and sell things. But when danger comes, you look away. You hope it will pass." Several Velthari warriors laughed. Dr. Yuna watched the exchange carefully. She saw how the aliens positioned themselves, how they displayed their weapons openly, how they used their size to intimidate. It was all very deliberate, very planned. Warlord Then stepped down from the platform and walked toward Lieutenant Juan. The human officer stood still, his hands clasped behind his back. "You," Then said, pointing at the medals on Juan's uniform. "These marks say you have fought in battles. Is this true?" "It is true," Juan replied quietly. "Then prove it." Then drew a curved blade from his belt. "I challenge you to ritual combat. First blood only. Show me that humans can fight." The hall grew silent. Every Velthari I turned to watch. Lieutenant Juan looked at the blade. Then he looked at Captain Teho. Something passed between them, a silent conversation that lasted only a moment. "I respectfully decline," Juan said. The laughter that erupted was deafening. Velthari warriors stamped their feet and howled with amusement. Warlord Then shook his head in disgust. "They cannot even defend their honor. then announced loudly. These humans are not warriors. They are prey. Captain Tejo remained calm through all of it. His face showed nothing. But Dr. Yuna noticed that his hands, hidden at his sides, had closed into fists. Later that evening, after the formal meetings had ended, Dr. Yuna found herself alone in a quiet corridor. She was studying a display of Velthari history when a voice spoke behind her. You are the one who studies minds. Yes. She turned to find Scholar Mivik standing there. Unlike the warriors, Mivik was thin and wore simple robes. His eyes held curiosity instead of aggression. I am, Yuna replied. And you are a historian, I believe. Mivik moved closer, checking that they were alone. I have a question that troubles me. I have studied many species. The proud ones fight when challenged. The weak ones surrender. But your people do neither. You simply refuse to engage. Is that strange to you? It is confusing, Mivik admitted. Your Lieutenant Wan. His body language showed no fear when Then challenged him. His heart rate remained steady. My scanner confirmed this. He was not afraid. Yet he would not fight. Dr. Yuna was quiet for a moment. She looked at the display of Velthari conquests. All those worlds destroyed or enslaved. May I ask you something, Scholar Mivik? Of course. In all your studies of species across the galaxy, have you ever found one that was afraid of itself? Mivik's head tilted. I do not understand. Yuna turned to face him fully. Her gentle expression remained, but something in her eyes had changed. Something old and heavy, like a door opening to a dark room. Humans do not fear war, she said softly. We fear ourselves. We fear what we become when the restraints come off. We have seen it before. We have lived through it. And we chose, as a species, to never let it happen again. Mivik stared at her. What happened to your people? Dr. Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Ask your commander to let you access our historical archives. See for yourself what humanity is capable of. Then you will understand why we work so hard to stay peaceful. She bowed politely and walked away, leaving Mivik alone with a feeling he had not experienced in many years, feared not of what humans might do to his people, but of what humans had already done to themselves. Scholar Mivik could not sleep that night. The human woman's words repeated in his mind like a song he could not forget. We fear ourselves. What did that mean? How could a species fear itself more than it feared its enemies? The next morning, he went to High Commander Rollis with an unusual request. You want access to the human archives? Rollis asked, his eyes narrowing. Why? To understand them better, High Commander. If we are to conquer them, we should know everything about their weaknesses. Rollis considered this. Very well. Perhaps you will find something useful. Something that tells us how easily they will break. Mivik bowed and left quickly. He did not tell Rollis the true reason for his curiosity. He did not mention the fear he had seen hiding behind Dr. Yuna's gentle smile. The human archives were vast. Earth had shared portions of their historical records with the galactic community as a sign of openness and trust. Most species ignored them. What could humans possibly have experienced that would interest the great civilizations of the galaxy? Mivik began with recent history, expecting to find records of defeats. He expected to see a species that had been beaten down, taught to submit by stronger powers. That would explain their reluctance to fight. Instead, he found war. Endless, terrible war. The records stretched back thousands of years. Humans had fought each other constantly. Tribes against tribes. Nations against nations. Alliances that formed only to break apart and form again. The scale of violence grew with each passing century. Mivik watched recordings of ancient battles where humans fought with metal blades, hacking at each other in muddy fields. He saw images of massive ships firing explosives at coastal cities. He witnessed flying machines dropping fire on populated areas, burning everything below. This cannot be right, he whispered to himself. They did this to their own kind? But the archives did not lie. Humans had spent most of their history killing each other, and they had become extremely good at it. Then Mivik found the section on weapons development. His species, Velthri were proud of their military technology. They had developed plasma cannons and energy shields and ships that could cross star systems in days. They believed themselves to be the greatest warriors in the known galaxy. But humans had created weapons of pure horror, Mivek read about. Chemical agents that melted flesh from bone. He learned about biological weapons that could kill millions in weeks. He discovered bombs that split atoms apart, releasing energy equal to small stars. One weapon, dropped on a single city, had killed over 100,000 humans instantly. And they had used these weapons on each other, not on aliens. Not on invaders from space. On their own brothers and sisters, the Velthri had never imagined such things. They fought for honor and conquest. They did not seek to erase entire populations from existence. That was madness. Yet humans had done it again and again. Mivik's hands trembled as he continued deeper into the archives. He found a section marked with warning symbols. The label translated simply as the silence. He opened it. The year was 2089 by the human calendar. Tensions between human nations had reached a breaking point. Old hatreds and new fears combined into something unstoppable. In a period of just 72 hours, humanity nearly destroyed itself completely. Nuclear weapons fell on every major population center. Billions died in the initial blasts. Billions more died in the weeks that followed from radiation, from starvation, from the collapse of everything they had built. Entire continents became uninhabitable wastelands. The sky turned gray with ash and stayed that way for years. 7 billion humans died. 7 billion. Mivek had to stop reading. He sat back in his chair and stared at the wall. The Velthri Dominion had conquered 200 worlds over many centuries. Their total war dead, across all conflicts numbered perhaps 50 million. Humans had killed 7 billion of their own kind in 3 days. When he could breathe normally again, Mivek continued. The survivors of the silence made a choice. They looked at what they had done and felt something that changed them forever. Not just guilt. Not just shame. They felt terror at their own capability. Humanity had come within hours of complete extinction. A few more missiles, a few more decisions made in anger, and there would be no humans left anywhere. The species survived by luck alone. In the years that followed, humans rebuilt. But they also changed. They created laws and systems designed to prevent such destruction from ever happening again. They taught their children about the silence, making sure every generation understood what humans could become if they lost control. Their expansion into space was not driven by conquest. It was driven by a desperate need to spread out, to ensure that no single catastrophe could end them all. Every colony, every station, every ship was another safeguard against their own destructive nature. Mivek found a recording from that era. An old human leader, his face marked by radiation scars, spoke to a gathering of survivors. "We now know what we are," the man said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "We are the most dangerous thing in this universe. Not because we are strong, but because we do not know how to stop. Every war we fight harder than the last. Every weapon we build more terrible than the one before. If we do not learn to control ourselves, we will not survive." The recording ended. Mivek sat in darkness. He finally understood why humans feared war. They did not fear losing. They feared winning. They feared what they would become if they allowed themselves to fight without restraint. Every peaceful gesture, every diplomatic solution, every time they walked away from a challenge, these were not signs of weakness. They were chains. Chains that humanity had built around itself to contain the monster that lived inside them. Mivek thought of Warlord, then laughing at Lieutenant Wan. He thought of High Commander Rolas planning an easy conquest. They saw humans as prey because humans refused to bare their teeth. They did not understand that humans kept their teeth. Hidden on purpose, Mivek found one more file. It was a collection of ancient human sayings, preserved as cultural artifacts. One phrase stood out to him, translated from a language that no longer existed. "Beware the fury of a patient man." He read it again. Then again, the words burned into his mind. Humans were patient. They endured insults and mockery. They turned away from challenges. They spoke softly and sought peace at every opportunity. They did all this not because they lacked fury, but because they knew exactly how much fury they contained. Mevik closed the archives and stood on shaking legs. He had to warn someone. He had to tell Rolus that the Velthari were making a terrible mistake. But even as he walked toward the command center, he knew that Rolus would not listen. The High Commander saw what he wanted to see. He saw weakness and cowardice. He saw easy victory. He did not see the truth. Humanity had not evolved past their violent nature. They had simply learned to hide it, to suppress it, to pretend it did not exist. But it was still there, waiting beneath the surface. An ocean of rage held back by nothing but willpower and memory. And if someone pushed hard enough, if someone threatened what humans loved, that ocean would break free. Mevek prayed to his gods that he would not live to see that day. The colony world of New Busan was beautiful. Green forests covered the mountains. Clean rivers flowed through valleys filled with farms and small towns. 3 million humans lived there, building homes, raising families, creating something good in a corner of space far from Earth. They woke that morning to fire in the sky. Velthari. Warships descended through the clouds like metal birds of prey. There were 40 of them, each one bristling with weapons. They positioned themselves over the major cities and broadcast a message that echoed across every communication channel. People of New Busan, the message said. The Velthari Dominion claims this world. You have 1 hour to surrender. Lay down any weapons. Present yourselves for processing. Resistance will result in destruction. This is your only warning. The message played again and again as families gathered in the streets. Looking up at the ships that blocked their sun, aboard the horizon's edge, Captain Tejo received the news in silence. His crew watched his face as he listened to the reports coming in from New Busan. His expression remained calm, controlled, but his eyes had changed. How many ships? He asked quietly. 40 warships, Captain Lieutenant Wan replied. Ground force is estimated at 50,000 soldiers. They are preparing to land civilian casualties. None yet. They are giving us time to surrender. Tejo stood still for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew waited. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's systems. Contact Admiral Daesung, Tejo finally said. Priority 1. Admiral Daesung was an old man with white hair and a face lined with years of service. He had commanded fleets and negotiated treaties and buried friends who died in the line of duty. When his image appeared on the screen, his expression was grave. I have seen the reports, Daesung said, before Tejo could speak. I've already contacted High Commander Rolus directly. What did he say? He laughed. He said that humans have 1 hour to accept their place as servants of the Dominion. He called it a mercy. Tejo closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, something had shifted. The calm remained, but beneath it was something older, something cold. Admiral, what are our orders? Daesung was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Tejo could see other officers moving, screens displaying fleet positions, communications flickering. Earth's military was already in motion. I am sending Rolus one final message, Daesung said. I am asking him to withdraw. I am telling him that what he has started cannot be stopped once it begins. I am giving him this chance because I do not want what comes next. And if he refuses... Dazan looked directly into the camera. His old eyes held a weight that younger men could not understand. Then God, forgive us all. The message reached High Commander Rolus as he watched his ground forces prepare to land on New Busan. He was in good spirits. The operation was proceeding perfectly. The humans had made no military response. Their colonial defense ships had retreated without firing a single shot. High Commander, his communications officer said, Priority transmission from Earth Fleet Command. Admiral Daesung, Rolus smiled. Put it through. Let us hear their surrender. Admiral Daesung appeared on the screen. He did not look afraid. He did not look angry. He looked sad. High Commander Rolus, Daesung said, You have attacked our people. You have threatened our families. I am asking you, pleading with you, to withdraw your forces. Turn your ships around. Go home. Forget this ever happened, Rollis laughed. Pleading? The mighty Earth fleet pleads with us. This is better than I hoped. This is not a threat, Desong continued, his voice quiet. This is mercy. I am offering you mercy that you do not deserve, because I know what will happen if you continue. Mercy. Rollis leaned forward. You speak of mercy when you have no power. You cannot fight us. You cannot stop us. Your people run and hide like frightened animals. We do not run because we are afraid of you, Desong said. We run because we are afraid of ourselves. I am asking you to turn back. I will not ask again. Warlord then stepped into view beside Rollis. It's empty words from a dying species. Begin the ground assault. Let us show them what real warriors can do. Admiral Desong watched them for a moment longer. Then he nodded slowly as if accepting something inevitable. I am sorry, he said. For what is about to happen? I am truly sorry. The transmission ended. Rollis turned to his officers with satisfaction. They have nothing. Send in the ground forces. I want this colony secured before his words stopped. Every screen on the bridge suddenly filled with new contacts. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. What is this? Rollis demanded. Where are they coming from? His sensor officer's voice trembled. Unknown, High Commander. Ships are decloaking across the system. Human ships. They were hidden. We did not detect them. The display showed the growing swarm of contacts. Human warships appeared from behind moons, from asteroid fields, from the darkness of empty space. They had been there all along, waiting, watching. How many? Rollis whispered. 3,000 confirmed. Still counting. High Commander. They are everywhere. Back on the horizon's edge, Captain Tejo stood before his crew. The time for diplomacy had passed. The time for soft words and patience had ended. Now something else was required. All hands, he said. His voice carried through every speaker on the ship. The Velthari have attacked our people. They were warned. They did not listen. Now we show them why we tried so hard to avoid this. Lieutenant Wan's hands moved across the tactical console. His face was set like stone. The man who had refused a simple honor duel was now activating weapons, systems designed to end wars. Engineer Sora stopped her nervous movements. Her eyes were focused, clear. She began routing power to systems that had never been used outside of training. Dr. Yuna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought of the archives Mivik had seen. She thought of the silence. She thought of all the chains humanity had wrapped around itself. The chains were breaking now. May we forgive ourselves, she whispered. For what we are about to do? On New Busan. The people watched the Velthari ships begin their descent. Landing craft filled with soldiers dropped toward their cities. The hour was ending. The invasion was beginning. But something was changing in the faces of the colonists. The fear was fading. In its place came something else, something they had inherited from ancestors, who had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed billions, something that refused to die. An old man in the capital city walked out of his home. He was 70 years old, with hands worn from decades of farming. His grandfather had survived the silence. His father had helped build the first colonies. He had hoped his children would never know war. He looked up at the descending enemy ships. Then he looked at his neighbors gathering in the streets. Young and old, men and women, all of them carrying whatever they could use as weapons. They think we are afraid, the old man said. His neighbor, a young woman who taught children mathematics, stood beside him with a metal rod in her hands. They think wrong. The old man nodded. They will learn. And as the first Velthari soldiers touched ground on New Busan, 3 million humans decided together, without a single word spoken, that they would not surrender, they would not run, they would show the Velthari what humanity truly was, and the galaxy would never forget. The first sign that something was wrong came when Velthari Supply Ship 7 exploded. It happened without warning. One moment the ship was holding position in orbit, carrying food and ammunition for the invasion force. The next moment, it was a cloud of burning debris. No attack detected. No enemy ships nearby. It's a sudden, complete destruction. High Commander Rolla stared at his display in confusion. What happened? Who attacked them? Before anyone could answer, Supply Ship 12 vanished in a ball of fire. Then Communications Relay 4. Then the fuel depot hidden behind New Busan's smaller moon. We are under attack, the sensor officer shouted. But I cannot find the source. That was the first lesson the Velthari learned about human warfare. Humans did not challenge their enemies to honorable battle. They struck from shadows. They targeted weak points. They destroyed the things that armies needed to survive before touching the armies themselves. The human ships had not. Decloaked to fight. They had decloaked to hunt, while Rolla struggled to understand what was happening in space. His ground forces met the people of New Busan. Warlord Then commanded the first wave. His soldiers were proud Velthari warriors, trained from birth for combat. They expected the humans to scatter like prey animals. They expected easy victory. Instead, they found the streets empty. Where are they? Then demanded, scanning the silent buildings. The scans showed millions of life signs. Underground Warlord, his lieutenant reported. They have retreated into tunnels and basements. They are hiding. Then made a sound of disgust. Cowards. Send teams to flush them out. Burn the buildings if you must. His soldiers moved forward into the city. They kicked down doors, entered homes and shops and schools. They found furniture pushed against walls, belongings abandoned, meals still warm on tables, but no humans. The first explosion took out an entire squad. A building they had just searched erupted in fire, burying 20 soldiers under burning rubble. The humans had waited until the Velthari were inside, then triggered hidden devices from a safe distance. More explosions followed. Across the city, buildings collapsed on invading soldiers. Streets gave way beneath armored vehicles. Walls fell. At exactly the right moment to trap squads in killing zones, the humans were not hiding. They were hunting. Then realized the truth too late. The empty streets were a trap. Every building had been prepared. Every corner had been scouted. The civilians of New Busan had turned their home into a weapon. Fall back, Fen ordered. Regroup in the landing zone, but the retreat was worse than the advance. Humans appeared from nowhere, struck with brutal efficiency, and vanished before the Velthari could respond. They used hunting rifles and farming tools and improvised explosives. They fought without uniforms, without formations, without any of the rules that Velthari understood. A Velthari. Soldier would turn a corner and find a teenage girl pointing a weapon at his face. He would reach for his blade to accept her challenge, and she would simply shoot him dead. No challenge, no honor, just cold, efficient killing. By nightfall, Thin had lost 2,000 soldiers. He had not taken a single human prisoner. In orbit, the situation was no better. High Commander Rollis watched his fleet come apart piece by piece. The human ships moved like predators, working together in patterns the Velthari had never seen. They would isolate a single Velthari vessel, overwhelm its defenses from multiple angles, and destroy it before support could arrive. They are not fighting us, Rollis shouted in frustration. They are butchering us. Scholar Mivik had been watching from the back of the command center. He had tried to warn them. He had begged Rollis to reconsider. No one had listened. Now he understood what Dr. Yuna had meant. Humans did not fear war because they were bad at it. They feared it because they were too good. Every tactic the human fleet used had been developed over thousands of years of fighting each other. They had perfected the art of destruction in ways the Velthari could not imagine. Mivik stepped forward. High Commander, we must retreat. We cannot win this. Retreat. Rollis spun to face him. We are the Velthari Dominion. We have conquered 200 worlds, and humans killed 7 billion of their own kind in 3 days. Mivik shouted back. They burned their own planet rather than surrender. They are not like us. They do not fight for honor or glory. They fight to end things. Rollis stared at him. I read their archives, Mivik continued, his voice shaking. Every war they fight, they learn. They adapt. They find new ways to kill, and they never stop. Never. They will keep coming until we are all dead, or until they decide the war is over. We do not get to choose when it ends. They do. Another explosion rocked the ship. Another Valkyrie vessel destroyed. On the surface of New Busan, the old farmer who had refused to run was helping coordinate the resistance. He had fought in no wars. He had trained for nothing like this. But deep in his bones, in the genetic memory passed down through generations of survivors, he knew what to do. Kill the enemy, protect the family, do whatever it takes. A young Valkyrie soldier, separated from his unit, stumbled into the farmer's hiding spot. The alien raised his weapon, ready to fire. The farmer looked at him with eyes that held no hatred, only determination. "You should have listened," the farmer said. "We tried to tell you." The soldier hesitated. He saw something in the old human's face that made him pause. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was sadness. Deep, ancient sadness. "Tell me what?" the soldier asked. "We are not the good ones," the farmer said. "We pretend to be. We work very hard to be. But underneath it all, we are monsters. Have always been monsters. We just learned to wear masks." The soldier lowered his weapon slightly. He did not understand. "Your commanders think they woke up a sleeping prey animal," the farmer continued. "They are wrong. They woke up something much worse." Nearby, a door creaked. The soldier turned, his instincts screaming danger. The last thing he saw was the farmer's neighbors emerging from the shadows, their makeshift weapons raised, their faces calm and cold and utterly without mercy. High Commander Rollis received the casualty reports with growing horror. Half his ground forces were gone. A third of his fleet had been destroyed. The humans had not offered surrender, had not asked for negotiations. They simply kept killing. Mivik grabbed Rollis by the arm. "Broadcast a message. Tell them you surrender. It is our only chance. Surrender." Rollis whispered. The word tasted foreign in his mouth. Valkyrie did not surrender. They might accept it, Mevik said desperately. They might show mercy. They have done it before. But only if we stop fighting. Okay, only if we give them a reason to put the chains back on. Rollis looked at the destruction around him. Ships burning in space. Soldiers dying on the ground. Everything he had believed about humanity, everything he had assumed about their weakness, was wrong. They were not weak. They were not cowards. They were something far more terrifying. They were humans. "Send the message," Rollis said, his voice hollow. "Tell them we surrender." Vivek moved to the communications console, hope flickering in his chest. Perhaps it was not too late. Perhaps humanity would remember its mercy. But as he reached for the controls, another transmission cut through. Admiral Daesung's voice filled the command center, calm and cold. "Hi, Commander Rollis. You were warned. You did not listen. You will learn what happens to those who threaten our families." The display showed the human fleet moving into attack formation. No. Surrender accepted. Not yet. Humanity was not finished teaching its lesson. The war ended on the 11th day, not because the Valkyrie surrendered. They had tried that 3 times. Each time, the humans simply continued their systematic destruction of the invasion fleet. The war ended because there was nothing left to fight. Of the 40 warships that had descended on New Busan, 7 remained. Of the 50,000 soldiers who had landed, fewer than 4,000 survived. The rest were dead or captured, their weapons taken, their pride shattered. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the human fleet stopped. Ships that had been preparing to fire held their positions. Ground forces that had been advancing paused mid-step. Across the entire battlefield, humanity simply stopped killing. High Commander Rollis stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching the human ships through the viewport. He did not understand. They had him. They could destroy what remained of his fleet with a single order. Why were they waiting? The answer came in the form of a communication request. Captain Tejo's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired. His eyes held none of the warmth Rollis had seen during their first meeting. But he was calm. High Commander Tejo said, "The threat to our colony has ended. Your forces no longer have the capacity to harm us. Therefore, we are offering you one chance to withdraw." Rollis stared at him. You are letting us go? We are allowing you to leave. There is a difference. But you could destroy us completely. You could push into Dominion space. You could take revenge for what we started. Toho was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Rolas could see Lieutenant Juan and Dr. Yuna and young engineer Sora. They all wore the same expression. Exhaustion mixed with something that looked almost like relief, Ukateho agreed. We have the ships. We have the weapons. We have the will. We could burn our way through your 200 worlds and leave nothing behind but ashes. We know how to do that. We have done it before. He leaned closer to the camera. But that is exactly why we are stopping. We did not want this war. We warned you. We begged you. We gave you every chance to walk away. Now you understand why. Rolas felt something he had not experienced since childhood. Shame. Deep, burning shame. Why? He asked. Why show mercy to enemies who showed you none? Because mercy is how we stay human, Tejo said. Every war we fight, we lose a piece of ourselves. Every kill, every destruction, every victory, it takes something from us that we can never get back. We stop now not because we cannot continue, but because we must not continue. There is a line we will not cross. Not even for you. 2 weeks later, a meeting was held at a neutral station. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session to discuss what had happened. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Great Hall, all of them waiting to hear from the humans. Admiral Daesong stood before them. He was even older than before, as if the 11 days of war had aged him by years. He spoke without notes, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. You have asked me to explain what happened? You want to understand why humans, who have avoided every conflict for centuries, suddenly became the most efficient killing force the galaxy has ever seen. He paused, looking around at the alien faces watching him. The answer is simple. We have always been this. From the moment our ancestors climbed down from trees and picked up rocks to use as weapons, we have been killers. Not because we enjoy it, not because we are evil, but because survival demanded it. Began to walk slowly across the stage. Every species has predators in their evolutionary history. Most of you evolved past that stage. You developed technology and civilization and left your violent ancestors behind. But humans did not leave it behind. We perfected it. We became so good at violence that we had to build entire civilizations just to control ourselves. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Admiral Daesong continued. Our kindness is not weakness. Our diplomacy is not cowardice. Our mercy is not inability to fight. These are chains we forged over thousands of years to bind the monster that lives inside every human being. When we smile and speak softly and seek peace, we are not pretending to be something we are not. We are actively choosing to be something better than what we truly are. He stopped and faced High Commander Rawlis, who sat in the front row with the surviving Velthari commanders. You attacked our colony. You threatened our families. You woke up something that we have spent generations trying to keep asleep. And for 11 days, we showed you what humanity looks like without its chains. Rolas could not meet the Admiral's eyes. Now you know our secret, Dasun said. Now you understand why we work so hard to avoid war. Not because we fear losing. We fear winning. Because every victory makes us better at killing. Every war teaches us new ways to destroy. And we never forget. He turned back to the full council. We have 10,000 years of warfare perfected into instinct. We carry the memories of every battle, every massacre, every genocide in our genetic code. When we fight, we do not fight like warriors. We fight like survivors. We fight like a species that has stared extinction in the face and refused to die. The chamber was completely silent. The Velthari thought they understood war. They thought they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. But they fight for glory and conquest. They stop when honor is satisfied. Humans do not stop. We cannot stop. Once the war begins, we continue until the threat is completely eliminated. That is not a choice. That is what we are. We walk back to the center of the stage, so we choose not to start. We choose to talk instead of fight. We choose to walk away from insults and challenges because we know what happens if we do not walk away. We saw it during the silence. We saw 7 billion of our own people die because we lost control. His voice grew heavy. We survived that, barely. And we swore that we would never let it happen again. Not to ourselves. Not to anyone else. We became a peaceful species, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Peace is the only thing standing between who we are and who we could become. Admiral Dassault looked at the council one final time. You asked why humans fear war. Now you know. We fear it because we are good at it. Too good. And if we ever stop fearing it, if we ever embrace what we truly are, there will be nothing left in this galaxy but humans and silence. He turned and began to walk toward the exit. Then he stopped, looking back over his shoulder. The Velthari woke us up. We have gone back to sleep. But please, I am asking all of you now, as clearly as I can, do not make us wake up again. We do not want to discover what we will become if we never go back to sleep. He left the chamber without another word. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Species that had once dismissed humans as cowards began to treat them with careful respect. Trade agreements were negotiated with extra attention to human concerns. Diplomatic insults that might have been exchanged freely were swallowed and forgotten. And whenever some young warrior or ambitious commander suggested that humans were weak, there was always someone older and wiser nearby to tell them the truth. Scholar. Mivik spent the rest of his life studying humanity. He wrote a book that became required reading across the Dominion. The final chapter contained a conversation he had with Dr. Yuna years after the war. Do you think your species will ever be free of it? Mivik had asked. The violence inside you. Yuna had smiled sadly. No, it is part of us. It will always be part of us. The best we can do is keep choosing every day to be something better. To hold the chains tight and never let go. If someone breaks the chains again, Yuna had looked at him with those gentle eyes that hid such terrible knowledge. Then we pray that we remember how to put them back on. On New Busan, the old farmer returned to his fields. The war was over. The enemy was gone. Life continued, but sometimes late at night he would look up at the stars and think about what he had done. The soldiers he had killed, the choices he had made, the monster he had become for those 11 days. He was proud that they had won. He was grateful that his family was safe, but he never forgot the look in that young Velthari soldier's eyes when the truth finally became clear. Humans were not prey. Humans were the most dangerous thing in the universe and the only thing keeping the galaxy safe was humanity's own fear of itself. The farmer went back to sleep that night, and the stars continued to shine. But somewhere deep in the human soul, the monster kept one eye open, waiting, always waiting.